Hello, and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. I'm here with my good friend Benjamin Balderson. Hello, Ben.
Hey, Beth.
How the heck are you?
Pretty good, except for my
Other
finger.
than other than the finger guts.
Yeah, the
We
finger
were
gut
talking about
story.
that. Oh my, oh my.
That was
So,
super gross. You didn't
oh
know that finger guts could come out till you punch a piece of glass and they're like an inch deep if I can pull it back out because it went through the top. So it just went and skinned along the bone and they had to pull it back out. Push my
right,
finger guts back in.
and you never use your right hand, right?
Yeah, never.
Yeah, no, I'm horribly right-handed. I don't my grandkids and my kids are actually mostly ambidextrous, but I am horribly right-handed, so it really sucks.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I got a right hand thing too, so I've been very aware of that myself. And
Well,
Mhm.
about 7 years ago, I flew off a motorcycle into a tree and shattered my whole left arm and my left side. And
Yes, I
I didn't
remember.
have a left hand or a left arm for quite a while, and that didn't really slow me down that much. But the right hand, now I can't do like almost anything. Like there's so many things where it requires my hand jamming into places and doing things. Like I got to go work on my generator and put this little piece in there, which I got to dig my hand there, and that's just whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it might be right on topic for what we're talking about today. I'm going to share a link to Rumble as well. And there's one to Rockfin. So if anybody in these platforms would like to jump over onto those, you are most welcome. Excuse me. We're getting started a little early. So surprise. That's a nurture subject too. I got a call from my son, and my son asks so little of me that when he asks anything, I just really want to be there for him. He's the least needy kid. And it's a complete mirror image from the early days, well, his first days, in the first 2 years. And you couldn't get within 5 feet away from him without there being some kind of a meltdown going on. And we just stuck with it, answered every possible call that we could,
How old was he then?
between 0 and 2.
Yeah.
Which is normal, right? Like, which is
Mhm.
absolutely acceptable and good. And people, my family would tell me, "Oh, you're ruining him. You're spoiling him. He's going to be a mama's boy like this." And it's exactly the opposite. After the 2 years, he was like, "Mama, who? I don't need a mama. What's a mama?"
Right.
Like this, right? Just having been completely fulfilled, or at least to the degree that we were able. Then it's good. It's a good thing. It makes them secure in the world. He never
Yeah.
called me from a sleepover saying, "Mama, I'm scared," or anything like that. His friends would all do that, but not me, right? He never wet the bed one time. So anyway, I'm giving myself a lot of congratulations here, but it makes a big
No,
difference.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Right on.
Very similar to what you're saying there with my own kids. One of the big discoveries I made, and I've got 7 that I raised, and then I had a bunch of other kids that I helped raise. And when I had my first, I was literally only 17 for a month when she was born. And
Wow.
so the first 2 kids I had, we did the whole, you bathe them in the sink and you have this little special little bathtub thing that you fill with water, and you do everything a certain way. Well, honestly, out of mostly necessity, by that third kid, you're like, yeah, I'm taking a shower, chuck that kid in there. Like, yeah, you're not even fucking around. You're like, I don't have time, I'm getting wet, you go ahead and get wet. We'll come out clean together, right? And so super interestingly, my first 2 children are both very scared of water, and neither of them would swim. Both of them are real uncomfortable with water. All my kids after that I would take showers with, all of them, they could care less about water. Complete comfort, not at all worried, very confident. And it was a real eye-opening thing for me the way that just giving them that comfort and ability, because it wasn't like after that they relied on me. Like you said, they just felt free to go play in the water as opposed to the other kids whom I actually paid more attention to be honest, because when they're in that little tub in there, you have to be the whole time you're paying attention to them, touching them, making sure they're good. Where when you're showering with them, they're just kind of fucking around by your feet doing whatever, you know, and they don't care. And the first one I did that with, one of the big things that I noticed was the older two, when we would go to rinse their hair and the water would get over their face, they would freak out badly about it. And that third one, the first one that I showered with, she would stand in there in the shower and she'd, you know, and do these numbers, and entirely different. So it just kind of goes along with what you were saying there. I've also noticed some of these things, and it's them first couple of years, that's fine to have that closeness and give them that security.
Yeah, exactly. Because they don't know. They just don't know that they're not going to die, and it's a real thing for them. They're kind of on the edge of death all the time, actually. So, yeah, very good. Well, I'm glad you're here. When I was thinking through in my mind who would be an example of a more awakened nurturer in the masculine, that is harder to imagine, because when we hear the word nurturer, you think feminine, you think women, you think girly, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So you were one of the first people that came to my mind when I thought of someone who is nurturing. I just started literally listing everything in your life that you are taking care of. Let's start with off-grid, right? So you're responsible for making sure all the food makes it to the kitchen where Christy can make a really good meal out of it. And I know you have animals, and you have an audience or a community that you're also looking after, and probably much more than I just said as well. So for anyone that isn't familiar with Ben Balderson, I have to imagine we all are, but I still want to make sure that people know that you are, first of all, a friend to me, both you and Christy. I really value your friendship. He's a spider.
I've been friends for almost 5 years now.
Going on 5. Exactly. Yeah. And I have a memory to share about the first time we met in New York State. And so Ben is also one of the co-hosts of Weaving Spiders. Welcome. Fantastic Saturday night podcast. I always stay up way too late, giggling in the background and just enjoying myself. It's a wonderful, it's perfectly timed. It's exactly the Saturday night for a person that it isn't out partying or going on dates or anything like that, which would be fine if I was. But he's also right. Yeah, he also mentioned the homesteader, and very much an alchemist, practical alchemist who really does stuff in the lab, not just thinking about it and pushing ideas around. And you take great care of your land, your animals, your family, your friends. So I'm pretty happy to have you here. Anything else you want to say by way of introduction?
No, I greatly appreciate all that. And we love you, Beth, and have always appreciated being friends with you. And the little bit of time that we've gotten to spend with you was amazing. 100%.
So good. So maybe I'll open with that story. Here, by the way, is Benjamin's Rockfin channel. So you'll definitely want to sub there. And then I'll also share a link to the Weaving Spiders Welcome on YouTube. There you go.
Which we post it to my Rockfin, so that also is definitely the Weaving. If you're wanting to watch it on YouTube, Weaving Spiders Webs, and if you want to watch it on Rockfin, because occasionally we do get yanked from YouTube, so we back it up on the Rockfins and put it on my Rockfin.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good. Good way of life. Yeah, so good.
Exactly.
So circa 2020, the shit had hit the fan big time. We were more or less locked down here in Canada and a number of places in the US, although not consistently. And I got the call from Aaron Beatty, I believe, saying, "Hey, Beth, you want to come to New York?" And my first thought is like, kind of illegal to even jump in the car around here right now. That wasn't that extreme here. It was other places. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want to go. I want to meet these people that you're already on my radar. There's a lot of people there that I wanted to connect with. And so I packed my car up and I drove up to the border where there was no one except about 5 kilometers worth of trucks. They were making go through so incredibly slow, torturing the truckers. And finally, I get far enough up and I see a sign. It says cars go this way. I'm like, okay, I'm a car. I'll just go this way. I go right up to the front to customs and they say, where are you going? It's a pandemic. And I went, I'm going to New York to see a doctor. And he was about to refuse me. And then I handed him a letter and he looked it over, closed the window for about 10 minutes while I'm just sweating buckets on the other side. And then he throws the window open. He says, all right, you're free to go. Oh, just I have to go move that barrier. And by the way, do you have any fruits or vegetables with you? And I'm like, no, I don't have a cooler full of fruits and vegetables right here for this. 36-hour drive, a crazy amount of 6,000 kilometers by the time it was all said and done. And I was off. Siri led me to the door.
They won't take that anyways. Just your like personal eating fruits and vegetables. They're talking about, because California is super strict about that. And what they're looking for is, you know, like say you have a truckload of whatever fruits or vegetables that you're trying to commercially move. But your own personal just food, because I've definitely had to go through the checkpoints and and I was definitely also scared, like, fuck yeah, like all I eat is fruit. I'm a vegetarian. Like I got lots of fruit in here. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. And there ain't nothing alive on the road, let's say. So anyway, I was telling a very long story just to get to this point. There was a ritual that we planned for a ceremony. I think it was a full moon thing. And there was a women's part and there was a guy's part. And so the guys got up and they did their little part. And then you bust in and put an end to it. And you started yelling at everybody. And I'm like, okay, all right. Look, you want to be a real man? This is how it looks. This is how it sounds. Let's do this. And I'm like, oh, wow, on the masculine. Looking at you, just admiring how much strength you had, and not like, you know, even though you were yelling, it actually was a kind of love that you were giving them and everyone, and it was a really beautiful thing. So, yeah, kind of a tougher love, and so I appreciate that about you. You are, to me, the person that I think knows the most about the masculine archetype in general. We've had excellent discussions about this. I don't think anything that we're doing today will suffer repetition of that, because archetypes are that subject that you can revisit over and over and over, and it doesn't get redundant. It doesn't get old. You just see more deeply into yourself and the people around you and those dynamics. So super happy to have you here, Ben.
Well, and this one's super interesting, and we haven't really covered this area, and it's going to go in a direction I think you're going to find pretty surprising. And it honestly even fits into that story that you just told, because and before I start on all that, just to make clear, part of the reason I had to yell is they were setting up the area and the guys were setting up their thing, and they go up there and these guys were all just like limp, like, wow, this is the masculine here. Like, where's the you know? So I had to, you know, give him the goose. Like, hey guys, wake the fuck up! Like, what is this? You know, we're in this magical ceremony, and you got a bunch of I don't mean to be crude, but limp dicks. Like, what are y'all doing? And you know, I had to go give him a little goose and get the juices flowing, so that way we could kickstart that. And the other thing, where this really ties into what where we're going, is at the beginning of that ceremony, and part of the other reason that everybody was kind of a little off is they tried to there's a bit of a reversal in the way people understand things, and so they tried to make it so the women kind of created a area, and then the men were going to come into that, and they said that's not how things work. It's just not how it works. You guys are doing like a ass backwards deal here. And I said, so we have to actually start with creation to understand the way this whole thing works. And some of you have heard me explain this before, but when you look at creation, you had the all, and the all was literally everything. But the all didn't really understand anything except for that it existed. It just, that's why the first I am, there's, you know, we've all heard the description of I am, and then also I am at the end. Well, those two I ams are different. That first I am had no understanding of itself in any way, shape, or form. It just understood that it was there. I exist. I am. And so the all then splits into the all mother and the all father. Now, the thing is that's just a negative one and a one. The two balance each other out. You come right back to where you started. So at that point, the all father splits into two. And that turns the all father into a masculine side, a masculine component and a feminine component. Now, that's all inside the all father. So both these things are masculine, but now that we've only entered into the macrocosm of the all father, not the all, inside the all father, we have a feminine and a masculine comparatively, right? So at this point, and as a heathen, we refer to this as Muspelheim and Niflheim, the land of ice and the land of fire. Now, there's still no life. Here is where Gunungagap, or the All Mother, takes those two polarized sides, because when the All Father splits, it's polarized, and they're pushing against each other, just like in alchemy, just like in the way we're built, everything. And so these two polarized sides are trying to push away from each other. Well, Gunungagap pulls them together, and where she pulls them together, there's destruction. But then inside of that is where life appears. Now, that light, where that life appears, that's called spontaneous generation. Now, the Google definition of spontaneous generation is it's a biological theory. Spontaneous generation, or the hypothetical process by which living organisms develop from non-living matter. Also, the archaic theory that utilized this process to explain the origin of life. So, what we're talking about is when the All Mother and the All Father split, the All Father is the material side. That is the golem, the clay body. Now, when the conditions of that material side were correct, then life appears inside that. That's when the All Mother gifts the life into those things. So this is a process that's a really kind of three-part process. And it's not till that very end where things are perfectly aligned that feminine will come in and imbue it with life. So as I even have that turned off. I don't know how that does that sometimes.
I know. I turn things off and they still ding at me.
Yeah, like it'll like turn itself on and ding. Like, Sean, quit messaging me, bro. So when you look at it, that material side is entirely masculine. And then the spark in and of itself was the feminine side, the destruction and the life that happened, the motion of it, the thing that we can't actually touch, because the material side we can weigh, we can measure. We can't measure that life that entered into it. What's the difference between a body that's got life in it and doesn't? How do you actually weigh that? How do you measure that? And outside of, if you've ever watched something die and watched the spark leave their eyes, where their eyes went from being alive to dead, there's no way you can actually, make that into something tangible for a person. Like, here's this thing, until you've seen it and experienced it and felt it. you can't understand it, you can't weigh it, measure it, none of it. So with that, we start understanding that, again, the masculine side has to set up this system in order for the feminine side to come in. And so as a person, like if we take mine and Christy's relationship, before Christy came into the home, I had a home 100%. And it was very functioning. It was able to provide for myself and Christy. Now, if I was a young man, which I'm not, if I was a young man, I would expect that also I would have myself, Christy, and some children. And so you're trying to set up this environment in order to achieve this thing that you want. And once that environment is set, it's almost like the fucking Field of Dreams, like, you know, you build it, they will come, you know, that kind of thing. Like once you have set this environment for this to start coming alive, that thing will come. It's no different than if I take bread and I stick it in a wet, moist, warm area and let it sit for a few days. The mold will come. It's going to come. You have set the environment for that thing to come. And it's like, all right, here I am, baby. I've been waiting. Like, but you set the right environment for these things to happen. And it starts being repetitive over and over again when you start understanding life, which is very much against the energetic systems that we currently use, which is part of why it's hard to grasp these understandings. Because like if you take a car, the car you're pushing, you're taking and you're forcing that thing in. Where in what I'm talking about, you can't force that in. You can't grab that feminine and say, come here, and just force it in. You have got to, for lack of a better term, lure or, you know, coax or convince it in. You can't just grab it and force that into place. You've got to make it so it wants to be there. And then once it's there, it starts end up being no different than if you take, as a farmer, the plant. If I set this wonderful area and create this wonderful biome and I put these in and I maximize the conditions that these things are going to have, then the life is going to be super thriving in it. It's going to be bright. All the leaves are going to just be reaching up and screaming, and you're going to see the vibrance in their color. Where if I don't set that, if I give it the bare minimum conditions in order to achieve this, those things are going to be alive, but they're not going to be thriving, and they're going to be more scraggly. You know, a lot of times they're in that point not going to reproduce as well themselves, because when you start understanding life, you only expand when you feel fucking A. That is more fucking messages than I will get the rest of the day. Wow. When you set up an area where and we talk about this in the conspiracy world, when you're constantly feeling like you are fighting for survival, when you're in survival mode, you don't expand as a person. And that applies to everything else. So if you set up an area and it's not got this real good comfortability, real providing of needs, then this expansion is not going to happen, because those things while living are going to be in more of a survival mode type system. And I've talked a lot. You go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, perfect timing. I was just going to jump in with a question. And so once that initial fighting for survival mode has been put in place, is it too late? So the ideal is that the masculine sets up the perfect environment container for the feminine to be attracted and life to thrive. And if it happens the other way around, is it a lost cause?
It's definitely not a lost cause. I would honestly say, and here's where it gets tricky. is the masculine, you need to set up an environment that they're going to be safe in and that they're going to thrive in. Now, where things have taken this really crazy turn is where they've tried to turn all nurturing into the feminine type nurturing. And so they've made it so men now will, rather than set up an environment to thrive, they're going to go ahead and cater to things. Now, that doesn't work out. So I'm going to use a very personal story with my grandchildren and my ex-wife. Now, my ex-wife, she is the extreme nurturer. You know, anything that is going on, you know, you hug them and you hold them and tell them it's everything's okay and whatnot, and you do everything for them. And like, so I have a granddaughter that I don't get along with the mother at all. So I've not been allotted much time with her. I have a grandson, and the grandson is my daughter's, it's my daughter that has him, because I've got, you know, numerous kids with grandkids now. I had 7 grandkids too. So, but yeah, so my daughter's son, I get spent, you know, for the first 3 years of his life, he literally was with me every weekend. My daughter would drop him off Friday after work, and she'd come get him Sunday evening. And so the first Christmas that we did together, where everybody was there, my ex-wife, my granddaughter, my grandson, myself, you know, a whole bunch of other people. And my granddaughter and grandson are about the same age. Well, during the whole Christmas thing, all she did was sit there and like clap, and she ate 3 full-size candy bars. She's got like, she was only 3, and she already had like 6 teeth already, you know, worked on, and fillings and everything else. I'm like, what the fuck? And then she sat there and clapped while the adults opened her presents. And my grandson, you know, he's up, you know, he's a 3-year-old. He's bouncing off the damn walls. You know, that's what kids do. And they got a ball pit, and my granddaughter wants to get into it, and she sits at the edge of the ball pit and makes these whimpering noises until an adult comes by and picks her up and puts her in it. And then my grandson Kai turns and looks at me and goes, "Papa, put me in it." And I looked at him and said, "Get your ass in there, boy." And he jumps up, he climbs up on the edge, and then does like a cannonball into it, you know, and he's having a gas. And my ex-wife goes, "Get your fucking lazy ass up and help him." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, the other one can't do a damn thing, including open her presents, because you don't allow her to do it. You do every single thing for her. So that's where it turns super toxic. With the masculine system, I can't make the plant grow. I can set the conditions up that are allotted the ability to thrive, but then you can't go in there and make it happen. And in every instance where you really want to try, one of the easy examples, you guys are so naughty. One of the easy examples is so many cats running around right now, with the egg, where if you take, and I personally have tried this, where there's times that chick can't quite make its way out of the egg, and you're like, oh man, and you give it a hand and you help it, and every time that chick ends up with splay leg, it doesn't thrive. Like, you can't help it fight its own fights. You can't fight its fights for it. All you are doing is weakening it, and I promise you, killing it. You are making it impossible for that thing to actually thrive. That is a negative thing, where you go in there and fight their fights for it. You have to give it the ability to do so. Give it the chance, and then it's got to do its own thing. Because the fact is you plant 1,000 seeds, you're going to get a certain percentage that don't germinate. And if they do germinate, they don't thrive. If you go and you spend your time trying to force those ones, they're never going to be good. And then the ones that would have been good, you actually are taking away from. It's a bad system. And I understand that in humans, we can't look at it quite that black and white, obviously. But we also have to understand that the same things do apply. that if you want growth out of the things that you're trying to bring up, that you also can't smother them and do everything for them. If you do so, you end up weakening them and doing the exact opposite of what you naturally would have wanted. And this is how we end up with an entire generation of kids that, rather than, like, when I was 16, I was already, like, my girlfriend was pregnant, very irresponsible. I wasn't a responsible adult, but I worked 2 jobs. I went to high school. I joined the Army when I was 17. I worked 2 jobs, went to high school, and I was in the fucking Army. I went to boot camp between my junior and senior year and did reserve type drills my entire senior year until I got shipped off after the end of my senior year. Worked 2 jobs the whole time, paid for my kid. You know, I was absolutely capable of that. I had 2 mechanics degrees, and I was an electrician by the time I was 21. Like, these kids today, they're 25 and they're not even out the home. They don't know how to take care of themselves in any basic way. Like, when I was in high school, and there's nothing feminine about being able to take care of yourself. Like, it's retarded to think that I don't know how to do dishes or cook. I took like 3 different years. I took cooking classes. I'm a really good cook because I like to eat. And when I was setting up my farm and spending my time as a hermit and getting to know myself and setting my system up before this amazing wife came into it and gave it life and beauty, I still liked eating, still enjoyed it. And I still like not being in a pig pen and having everything have rotting and mold and everything else. Didn't like that either. So those were just basic human things you got to do. Now, at this point, I don't do the dishes and cooking, but I go outside and shovel the shit and fix the vehicles and push around the animals and things like that. So my wife doesn't do those. And
Right.
It's just being a division. But because she's inside doing these things, like when she's gone and I have to do her jobs, we get half as much done on the farm. Now we're basically idling. Where when Christy's here, I'm able to make real good progress because I don't have to worry about these things in here. She's got that covered. I can go and make progress.
Yeah, it's such a great depiction of how perfectly the 2 archetypes work together. And that expresses in the division of labor that it's like you said, it's not that you can't do it. And it's probably even the fact that you can do it that makes you even better at not doing it or at being able to share the labor. Because if it's something that you have a huge aversion to, then you need to get past that aversion first. But just going back also to the illustration that you're making, that one of the big shadows of the nurturer archetype is enabling.
Yeah.
And this is always such a wake-up call because people come to me. I have so many clients that have the nurturer archetype. Pretty much everybody in my world has that going on to some degree or another, and usually more. And, so they're bending over backwards and they're helping everybody and they're saving the brother and the mother and the friend and everybody, and they're ruining their own life doing it. And they're not taking care of themselves. And then when they realize that enabling actually, because they know it sets them back, they already know that part, that people are usually more honest with themselves, that they don't have energy at the end of the day or enough money or resources, whatever it is. But they don't realize that it sets that person back that they're helping, because it's totally blinding. They go into what I call a nurturer's high and they don't see it. They're all doped up, literally from the inside. Maybe it's dopamine, some adrenaline thrown in there. And they don't understand that people are actually being set back by the way you're helping. Now, it's an interesting conundrum because it doesn't, the nurturer is bona fide. You can't just like cut off the head of the nurturer and think that you did anything good or positive for life or people around you. But neither can you continue enabling. So in your estimate, what is that healthy expression? We need each other, right? You can't, like you said, you're half-mast if you're just trying to fulfill all your needs all day. You're just, or even idling, you said, is a great description for that. So where do you knowing that people need help, how have you managed? You're nodding your head, so you get the question. Go ahead.
I 100% understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
And honestly, I deal with a lot of people. We have quite a few people that come out and stay with us for, whatever period of time, sometimes for a few weeks, sometimes for, a year. So, and what people are used to is this more smothering type of nurturing, where if they want something, you go do it for them. And in no way do people, and we innately kind of know that people don't appreciate things they don't work for, that they don't grow from it, that they don't enjoy it, but they want it, and they want you to give it to them. And so they've very much turned that into the way the world works with most people, where on the flip side, the way it really needs to happen is you need to enable them to do it. Give them the tools. Don't give them the answer. It's that whole, you can teach a man to fish and feed him for a lifetime, or you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day. And you're actually, again, making it worse, because now he's starting to develop that, well, people will give it to me if I'm, looking a certain way, if I ask a certain way. That person is also getting a fish, is the thing that we don't want to recognize. And so because that system is somewhat functional, even if it's not healthy functional and not as consistent, it is somewhat functional. And you'd be shocked how much people will hold on to something that at least partially functions. And you'll hear all the, oh, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and all these statements. No matter how broken something is and how misguided it is, if it functions a little bit, people will hang on to it for sure. It works a little bit. And so what you need to do, and honestly, on a personal note, my interactions with Odin, this is all Odin's ever done. Odin did not in any way. Odin's super harsh masculine about it. Like, literally, the interactions I had with Odin, I had a vision of the tree of life. It was broken into 3 pieces, and they were swirling around. And Odin just said, I'm not one mind, I'm 3. And then he told me, you are the spider. That's the entire 2 sentences that he's ever actually said, that I've, heard, or, intuited, or, whatever you would want to call it. And I had to work out the rest. Like, here, boy, I gave you the key. You can't fucking find your way. Fuck you. And this is the way it's more supposed to be, is I've given you the tools. You're Brian down here, he's not a mechanic. My one guy that lives here, my partner Brian, he's not a mechanic. He's got a side-by-side, and he loves his little side-by-side. It's a really awesome little tool, especially out here in the mountains. It's like a oversized 4-wheeler 2 people can sit on. It's got a little dump box. Thing's awesome. His CV axle went out, and it took out a few other components. Did I go down there and just run down there and take that apart and throw it back together? Nope. Brian at that point won't know anything more about his machine. Chances are good that this nut that came loose, if he had caught that ahead of time, he would have saved all these other components. Now, because of that, we give him, I go down and I have the best tools in the world. I live off grid, and it's hard. It takes an hour for me to get a gallon of gas, to get to a gas station, get a gallon of gas. So anything I got to do and breaks down and whatever, I have to be able to fix it. So tools is one of the things I don't mess around with. So I go down and give him the right tools, and I give him, give him some pointers, tell him, oh, this and this, oh, you see this, but he's doing it himself. And he's been allotted given the ability to do it, because without those tools, he can't even do it. Like, he's just shit out of luck. Instead, and what he's gonna do, and this is another thing, this is part of why we've entered in this just do it for me era, is everybody wants to hand over some money, and now you just do the job for them and they get it back and it's all fixed like magic, like it, you know. No, instead he ordered the parts. He's down there putting them, cleaning them up, putting them together, checking everything out. I will go behind him, check everything out, make sure it's all right. And after this, he's going to have a much greater understanding of everything that's going on in that front end. And he knows what kind of work it took for him to do that. And so he's not going to be as callous about beating it up. He's going to take better care of it now. Even he's going to understand which each of these moving components and what that feels like, all those things. And it's going to make him a better driver in that thing. It's going to make him a better maintainer of it. It's going to last longer. All those good things are going to come from having just given him the tools to do it. None of those things came from me doing it.
And once he knows, I'll just add to this, because once he knows and he's gone through it and he understands exactly what it takes, then he could hire somebody if that was appropriate or available in that case, without, to me, the same cost, where you just hand something over and you're like, okay, could you handle that for me? I know I'm familiar with a few of those things. I'm a good hirer because I was born and raised in a business where, you know, we couldn't do anything without having all of the different components. And we needed them to be full-time professionals in those components, whether it was graphic arts or writing copy or whatever it was, generating video, you name it. So, but yeah, if you have no idea yourself and you have a fear and an aversion to that, then that's going to be a lifelong, turn into a dependency, and a not healthy one. I love what you say about the somewhat functional enabling that goes on. And also to point out how that nurturer that is keeping people in that frame of doing too much for them, then the other person turns around and feels entitled.
Yes.
And they will, instead of being grateful for all the help that you've given them, they will resent you. They will maybe hate you and turn on you.
100% happens every time.
Right. What a phenomena. And it's a shocker to the nurturer, because they've been given their all, going the marathon, doing everything. And then all of a sudden that person hates them. So that's a really good wake up for the nurturer. Exactly. Someone, hello, Cat Wrangler, J.E. Cat Wrangler. I don't know how to say your name exactly, but the nature of reciprocity. And, I'll give you some if you give me some, and that equal partnership. But I want to say that that's not necessarily a realistic goal for a nurturer, because there are things that happen in life. And, say your cat just had 17 babies, or several cats, I think. and what's that?
Or 22,
Or 22, exactly. And that mama knows she's in service, and in an extreme way. She can't go and get lost and wander in the bush and fulfill her little yayas. She has to be completely 100% on it. And chances are it's going to be hard on her. And she will need extra nutrition, extra water, extra love, right? So that's how the nurturer's life works. There's peaks and valleys where all of a sudden you're on as a nurturer, and it's not necessarily setting up a dependency. It's like, okay, well, my cousin's having a baby, and it's now. It's not like later, it's now. And I'm going to lose some sleep to this. And I won't have a proper meal for myself. And I'm going to spend energy and time looking after her. And that's good and right. But where do you think that it goes sideways? Where do you think it hits the wall?
It's, this is one of those that, like so many other things in life, there's never going to be a definitive answer. It's always going to be one of those things where we're constantly going to have vigilance, and we are all going to err to one side, as each individual is going to have more of a chance at erring to one side or the other, because that's just how we are. But we're going to continue to err to that side often. And each individual, and depending on that individual's time, is going to change. Like, so sometimes that extra help is going to be helpful for them. Sometimes it's going to be hampering for them. It's this human experience. We don't get to have a definitive black and white. This is how you do it. This is boom. It'll work out this way. Unfortunately, get the fuck out of here.
So no formulas then. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
And that's
there is no formula. It's you're gonna have to go off field. Two mama cats trying to fight.
there you go.
Yeah, you're gonna go. This one here is the best mouse. The best. Well, we don't really have mice. We have rats because we live in the woods, so we have wood rats. And this cat is the best rat killing thing you ever seen, but she's also super mean to the other animals. And so we have to. That's why she just got locked in the cage. She gets locked in the cage often. Like, no, you can't go beating everybody else up. You need to stop.
Right. Yeah. So good illustration, right? Because the very same quality that is in wonderful service to you, but in the wrong context with those other animals, then she becomes a nemesis. So that's part of the key that goes there. Yeah. And then I'm a huge fan of making no policies because they never work.
Me too, but it's a hard road to hoe because in order to achieve that, the people that you're working with have to also be adults and want to have personal accountability. And as soon as a person lets go of personal accountability, then that whole system falls apart. And so it's a good ideal. I have yet to live with any larger group of humans and have that as a general thing be the way they acted. At some point in time, when a group dynamic gets big enough, some people will end up rising and some people end up falling off and they won't maintain. And it's a very interesting thing. And I personally, I said, have yet to find that dynamic where everybody wants to hold their own and act adults. It's a very interesting thing. And this cat thing is perfect because, again, this is part of why this is on the masculine, because you need to set the boundaries. And that's a tough thing to do. And that's not really a feminine thing. The feminine's actually supposed to be anti-boundary. The feminine's the chaotic side, the fire side, the life side. And that's exploding everywhere. And the masculine, which is the body that feminine entered into, or that home, or that realm, whatever it is, that feminine's wild. And so the boundary setting is the masculine side, but it's a hard thing because too much boundary constricts, and too little boundary, everything comes apart. And so I also am very anti. I'm at my heart, and I've ended up having to move past this, and I'm not really one anymore. But I was an anarchist for years, and but the thing is what I had to have was more self-discovery, because I'm not really an anarchist, because in my home and in my place I'm not. There are rules, and there have to be. Like if you don't, then things all come apart. And so what I really end up coming to is I'm more tribal, because I don't believe that when systems get too large, they're able to function. But in small areas, there definitely needs to be a hierarchy. And I even believe in the class system. I don't believe in the static class system where things can't move, where you're born one thing and you can't, and that's it. You can't move up or down in the system. It's just you're born into it. I don't believe in that. But 100%, I believe that naturally there's people that want to go out and lead. They want to trailblaze. They understand how things work. They have a grander plan. And there's some people that just want to go do a task that they were given, and then go eat supper and have sex and go to bed. Like, that's what they want to do. They don't want anything else. And that's okay. That's the other thing that the community has a real hard time with, because everybody wants everybody to be awakened and everybody wants everybody to be blah, blah. You know what? 95% of people will never make it. When you look at even in a revolution sense, in a revolution, it takes 3% of the population to overthrow a government, to overthrow the whole rest of this system. 3%. I guess tiny. That tells you that only 2% were running it. Like the other 95, they want to go to work, go home, watch some TV, eat some supper, have some sex, punch out some other little kids that look like them, and go to bed. That's what they want to do. And that's okay. What's wrong with that? Why are we criticizing that? Like, those people do the tasks I don't want to do. Like, if I was sitting there having to spend all my time doing those tasks, then I wouldn't get the things I'm doing done. And so that's all fine, but you need to set the boundaries for where things can thrive in that system. If I, as a gardener, let my plants just willy-nilly go anywhere, they're going to end up in areas where it's not good. And so, and these are areas I'm not taking care of. In my little boundary, this little area I've set up so things can thrive and grow. And I've set these boundaries. That now, is it a boundary, a hard boundary, like, oh, I'm going to punish you if you leave that boundary? No, the plants are going to leave it if they want. I'm not going to go punish a plant. But is the plant going to thrive outside of that boundary? No, it's not going to do near as well as the plants inside. Most likely is going to die. So right. You're naturally setting these boundaries, whether you want to call it boundaries like you're a dictator type or not.
Right. So interesting. And you said earlier that it's hard when the other person has no boundaries. You have boundaries, but they have no boundaries. And this is the big thing that you run into in the world, because the vast majority of people don't have good boundaries. They haven't been raised with good boundaries. They might have an inkling that they lack them. They may have no idea that they lack them. And so if you want to deal with the average person, and even, all the people in my world, I love and adore them. I couldn't love them more, but boundaries are a constant subject. And sometimes I'm actually really grateful. I think I'm so smart because I put myself in that situation where if I don't have boundaries, then the whole thing goes to hell. And they're watching me for a certain example of things, not that I'm the ruler or the leader or anything like that. Just if they're going to see me do something, they're very well going to think that, oh, that works. And then so it is a phenomena that when somebody doesn't have good boundaries, then it's like you have to have extra for them too.
Yeah.
And it can bring up a whole dynamic where you actually get like really angry at them because you don't want to be mean. You're a nurturer. You don't want to withhold. You're a nurturer, right? But if they force the issue without having good boundaries, then it kind of gets ugly. So what would you say in that case where somebody doesn't? Now I'm assuming there would be some tough love going on your side.
That is at the end of the day the only answer, and the problem is depending on the size of the group that you're talking about. Now, even as children, now, like when Christy and I first got together, her ex-husband was a real shithead, still is, like that didn't change. He's a dirtball. And he told her kids that they didn't have to basically listen to the rules at my house, that they didn't have to do chores at my house and things like that. Now, you can immediately off the top see where that's problems with those kids. Like, that's pretty easy to see. Now, where it's not as easy to see is now my kids who were getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do chores and whatnot, so that way they could have their chores done and then have time to clean up after chores and then get themselves some breakfast and then get ready for school. Well, shit, I get up at 6. These fucking kids don't get up till 8. And that sucks. Why? And so now the ones that are acting right, they're also angry. And the ones that weren't acting right, they don't appreciate that allotment. It's not like they're like, well, I'm going to do better in these other things because I'm allotted extra here. That's not the way that goes. They just turn into little pricks that are better than the other ones. And it's an automatic thing because they have extra rights. They've got extra allotments. And so they turn into little pricks. And then the other ones turn resentful. And why wouldn't they? Why does this guy get to have extra? He's not even doing as many chores as me. Like, are you kidding me? Why wouldn't I be the one that gets extra if somebody's gonna? And so now you've got this side angry and this side angry. And this is a personal failing on your part. And you've got to own that and understand that it's only through that that you, while uncomfortable with having to lay down the law in this situation, if you don't, you're destroying your own system. And you are actually making everybody unhappy. And as a parent, when you've had a bunch of kids, unlike what the liberal media and the current education system tries to portray today, yes, there's some kids that if you spank them kids are crushed and it fucks them up 100%. There's some kids that until you spank them, they are little shitheads. And the minute you give them a whopping, they're like, I love you, Daddy. Let me be an awesome, amazing, caring child. Like, did that make you happy, dude? Were you cool with that? Like, was that what you wanted? I don't understand.
Isn't, again, that a perfect illustration of the masculine feminine, which is also the predator and the prey, right? So if a child has much more prey in them and they're weaker and it's easy to crush them with a little bit of force, like you said, you could actually permanently damage that child. But you get the other one that's much more predator, much more edgy, much more, pushing the limits and testing every boundary. And then yet sometimes you're going, okay, get a little whack.
And they won't get right until that happens. They will not. And once again, just like we were talking about earlier, where you're like, well, what's the formula? There is no formula. You can take two little kids that had the same action and the same punishment. One of the kids doesn't react to it at all, or it doesn't do anything good, or it crushes them. And one of them, it's beneficial. You as a person need to at all times be consciously aware of your environment and consciously. One of the other things that our community's really gotten weird about is judging, but you're supposed to judge. And when you don't, then how am I supposed to react to these completely different situations? I had one child, and again, I had kids like that. My child, Brianna, if I looked at her sideways, she like fell down in a mess. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And you're like, oh God. And I had a son, Draven, that if you didn't crack him on the ass, that kid wasn't going to get right. He was going to make sure you did that. And he was going to keep getting progressively worse all throughout the day, the next day, until he got that. He was going to he's like, okay, where's my whipping spot? Okay, that's it. Cool. And all of a sudden he's happy. And so you don't ever get this allotment of one size fits all. Like, that just doesn't happen. And you as a it kind of takes on this shepherd role when you think about it, because that is really a real good representation where you're setting the boundaries, and inside the boundaries they're allotted to do what they want. But throughout that entire process, you're ever vigilant. And that's the thing that people want to let go of. And this is what the boomer generation with the TVs really let go of, is their vigilance. You can never let go of your vigilance. At no point in time do you get to push autopilot on life and say, fuck it. I got the rules set in place and I can just push the button. It doesn't work. You have to be vigilant, because at any given time, the reactions that you have with different people are going to change even. And that's the other thing. Like my one son, Brett, he was also one that needed the whoopings. Usually the boys need the whoopings more than the girls. It's typical. The girls usually more emotive. They will understand that they've done something bad and that that the societal pressure has more influence on them. Boys, they like, you all think I'm a shithead? So different dynamics. But when Brett turned 13-ish and hit puberty, all of a sudden I walk by and I'm like, what are you doing, shithead? Why are you calling me names? Whoop, what the hell just happened here? So now all of a sudden the dynamic changed. And because he was going through puberty, or maybe he was going through a rough time at work, or maybe he was going through personal revelations, at any given time, the dynamic that you have with people is subject to change. So in no way do you ever get a formula outside of your own personal boundaries that Beth was speaking about earlier, which is something that you end up having to set. And then for me personally, there's the farm, the Fehu Farms, and the farm has boundaries. And if you don't fit in those boundaries, you don't fit here. And that's not because, and of course there's going to be times that, look, I wasn't feeling good today. I got sick. I was up calving at 2:00 in the morning. I slept in for an hour, that kind of thing's going to happen. But for the most part, there's a set of boundaries. And if people don't sit inside those boundaries, then the entire farm starts falling apart. So it's got to be a more impersonal thing. The boundaries do. And then with personal interactions inside of that, in the way that you're doing things, it's never going to be easy.
Yeah, I like it. What you're talking about, it's very right on. The vigilance, and that means that you have to pay attention all the time. Like you said, no autopilot. You can't just push the button and think everything's going to keep going by itself. People do change. One quick question before I move on to a different subject, related, of course. Do you think that boys are more or less sensitive than girls, or is that an irrelevant question because they're all different? A different balance in and of themselves, or is there some generalization there? Because I can go both ways personally.
It's super interesting. So because women are less controlled with their emotions, they're considered it's really very backwards. Because women are more emotional, they're considered the ones that are the emotional masters, and it's not. Men are typically much more emotional, have emotional mastery by far. And then on the flip side, higher thought typically comes from the feminine side. That's because they're more chaotic, they're more wild. And so when you look at boys, they need to have, this is part of why, like, you'll see guys a lot of times when a relationship ends, a lot of times a guy basically gets crushed. If it's a real relationship, not like today's, like these fuckboy things, but like where you see guys and they're crushed, their world ends. And a lot of times in that relationship, and this is a statistic you can look up. They say, I think it's more than 50% of the women have been planning the breakup, separation, have been making active moves, setting up side bank accounts, things like that for a year ahead of time before the breakup. So while men have more emotional mastery, they also require more stability in it. Men don't do well with the emotional instability. It'll make them go insane. And so they need the structured comfort, which is kind of more emotionally needy. My world, part of the reason I can be such a dynamo and able to do so many things is because I have 100% faith that this right here is all me, that's taken care of. I don't even got to think about it. That is almost an autopilot. It's not, because obviously I've got to maintain my relationship, but as long as I'm able to keep my relationship with my wife proper, she's got my back. I don't even need to turn around and look. And so
yeah, huge shout out to Christy, by the way.
What's that?
Just a huge shout out to Christy, by the way, and the amazing team that you guys make.
Yes, and that's behind every king is a good woman, and he couldn't have did what he did if he felt a deficiency in his back. Then you're constantly got to concentrate on that. I don't concentrate on that. I'm able, because have such a wonderful relationship with my wife, I'm able to keep my eyes here and keep my focus there. So that is a bit of an emotionally needy thing. If I don't have that security, I'm not able to be that person. That's just the flat and simple of it. And so while it seems like you would normally cater more to the feminine side with that, that's really a very, it's kind of the squeaky wheel analogy, and you can't let your good wheel go to shit on that. Yes. So on the flip side, if you give the feminine too much structure, they can't grow. So you can see where that balance again takes place, where it's kind of you can't strangle the feminine, but the with too much, but on the flip side, the masculine also, you need that emotional support and that structure inside of the emotional support. It can't be a whimsical thing. It can't be if you're leaving if Christy every other day was breaking up with me, my world would never grow again. All growth would stop. Everything would turn to survival mode. All those kind of things. So there needs to be the structure on this side, but it needs to be an emotional structure. So it gets really very interesting in the way people look at it. Because like I said, they think women are the more emotional masters, but they're more chaotic with it. Flat out.
And then so that question of sensitivity, I totally agree with. Oh, are you still there? Yeah, you're still there. I totally agree with what you're saying, that we do attribute emotional mastery to women, but it's for sure men. Like how many times it's taken me my entire life to see, and my son has helped me a lot, because I'd be like, I wonder what he's feeling. I wonder what he's thinking. And then every so often I'd get brave enough and ask him, and he's like, nothing, Mom, nothing. Right. And even generalized. And he said, every time you're wondering what a man is thinking, it's nothing, nothing at all. They're not like you. Like, he's actually quite wise already. And, but when it comes to sensitivity, right? So say a really strong boundary, like, you're out of line, get back in line, as a maybe extreme example of that. And some people, like you said, will be like, oh my God, what did you just injured me or harmed me. And then why, that the other one could take it on the chin and go like, yeah, he's being mean, but actually I feel the love anyway, and it's for my good, and I know it's, for the better of everyone. So I'm just so curious, because men actually seem to, in many ways, more sensitive than women. You think so? Like it's easier to hurt a man emotionally?
I don't think it's easier, but I think it's more lasting. It's women will take, and they'll be as emotionally hurt, but their emotions are wild. Men, once you burn a man in that way, like once you're done, it's done. There's no coming back from that. We don't get that nostalgia of a couple of years later. Oh, I remember the good times and blah blah blah. We're like, fuck no. Like we don't get that. It's once you, and it's partially because we are more orderly. Like once you've broken that order, it's broke. It's you went too far. You done did it. Can't do it with you no more.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Again, a hard road to hoe. It's all of these human interactions is not one of those things that you ever get a free pass on, just an easy street on. It's always going to be this weird, and again, ever changing is what really fucks you up. Just as a guy, you got a son that acts one way between 1 and 12, between 12 and 16 acts another way, between 16 and 21 acts another way, between 21 and 25 acts another way, 25 to 30. After 30, they start stabilizing and kind of, but up until then, like you're dealing with vastly different people at different times. And if you're going to maintain those people in your life, and not always are you, sometimes you're going to run across situations where people don't want to fit inside your boundaries, or you don't want to fit inside their boundaries. And you're at an impasse, and that's going to happen. And then there's some people like, again, with the son analogy, obviously I'm always going to have a connection with my son, and always, he's always going to be my son. So throughout the years, you just have to figure out the different ways that you interact, straight out. And sometimes that's good and sometimes bad. I've got 7 adult children, and some of them I prefer when they were children, and you look back and you're like, God, I miss that kid. How the fuck? And then like some of my kids, like my daughter, like I could not be prouder. I look at her and she's just like, it's just like, wow, like, you just do so good. Like, and I felt like I was fucking up a lot of times, like,
And she still did amazing. So that's fantastic. Yeah, really good. I can totally relate to that. And my mom would always say, she liked us better as we got older. So she wasn't so good with the young children, but there was a lot of appreciation for us as adults. And sometimes it works the other way around. So I wanted to talk about what happens when the masculine nurturer, the nurturer that is a man, crashes. It's different from when the feminine crashes in their world, say in a, getting punctured.
Yes, I got used as a scratching post.
Yeah, I can see that puncture look on your face there. Yeah. And so, what I noticed, here's my quintessential example in my life is that my dad was responsible for everything. He was keeping house and home together. My mom had to make the house inside function, but he was the one that brought all the resources to the home. He was responsible for the business. He was responsible for putting a paycheck in his employees' pocket every 2 weeks. He was responsible to keep the bank in their interest rates and keep the government happy, sending all the money to the government. And, he was taking care of literally everybody, huge weight. And he ended up diagnosed with cancer more than 20 times in his life, an insane number of diagnoses. Yeah. And, so to me, it's actually pretty classic nurturer, that looking after, and like, boom, not there anymore. And he would always attempt every mind over matter, and assert his will and just keep working. Never really took time off at all, unless it was I'm in surgery or I'm in treatment or I'm in this or that. He would just muscle through and keep showing up. And so this is the subject of the training that I am doing on Wednesday. If people haven't heard about it yet, it's called the Nurturer's Pendulum Swing, how to get off that shit, because it is go full on, help everybody, do everything, show up 150%, and then boom, you're down. You crash, and you can't, if you're unlucky, you can't even push through. There's no capacity for that. Then you're out for the game and you can't help anybody. And then the need doesn't go away. So there's some recovery, and you're like, okay, back at it as soon as you possibly can. And you're back in that extreme of helping everybody with everything. So I'm curious what you think from the masculine side, that when they crash and when the nurturer is there, what's going on that I maybe couldn't see through my own eyes, since I'm a woman.
A lot of times it's you've put so much in that you and then because you're putting so much in, the other people don't. And again, that whole resent thing builds up, and then you just end up, you've used yourself up. It's you can't do it anymore. You've used yourself up and you've not gotten back. Again, this is the thing with where Christy is, where I get back. The things I do are appreciated. And when you're a man, when you're needed, and I don't know how to answer the part where you're like, where they do fall. Because the thing is when a man's not needed and appreciated, I don't know what to tell you. Like, guys, you lose it. You guys will lose their drive. You literally see men die in those situations where they will fall apart and die. As soon as you give a guy a direction, they will fucking take off like wildfire. But they need to have that. They need to have that emotional stability in their life, or else they can't keep going. They can't maintain. That's a core need in order for them to go out and do what they're doing. Otherwise,
Exactly.
otherwise, we get destructive if we are going to keep moving, because then you don't care about anything.
Right. And if I could just if I could just really quickly jump in, and how that's been engineered so that, men were portrayed as useless, as the Homer Simpson or the boob on TV. And then it became popular to not only not appreciate men, but to depreciate them, right? To go the other direction and point out their faults and everything. So please go ahead.
What disturbs me though, because I want to take a moment, because a lot of times, because we're in what I consider a feminized world, people get my opinion on the feminine a lot of times, and the hardness on it. But where things went sideways, and where I'm just going to jump on the men about this, is you weak ass little pathetic men that decide you wanted to be fucking Homer Simpson, that you guys glorified that you fucking decided that you wanted to be that you thought it was okay to sit home and be 5 years old and still have little action figures and play video games and things like that, and not put your energy and your life force into something that's going to be beneficial and adult. You decided we've got a whole generation, 2 generations of Peter Pans, just Peter Pan bigger than shit. And here's the damn problem. And we had a guy on Spiders that actually left because there's a real big push now back toward conservatism. And I'd been calling for this for years, that there's going to be a hard right push, because the left has gone so batshit crazy that the right's going to, come in with their freaking jackboot. That's 100% coming. But there's a big push back toward traditional relationships and whatnot. Well, he lived in his fucking grandma's basement and had fucking anime and video games, and he's a dungeon master and blah blah. And you expect any woman of any value that's going to actually be that good wife to come in and feel safe and feel provided for and feel like she can grow and like her life is taken care of, like she can bring heart into that system? Like, that's a high school kid system. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you have got to be man enough yourself and be adult and do these things. And it's when they started shitting on men, we shouldn't have agreed. We shouldn't have said, yeah, I am Homer Simpson. Like, I do just sit home and be useless. I don't know how to work on anything or do anything that a man would do. I can drink beer and watch cartoons. Adults watching cartoons. They made a whole thing of adult cartoons. Yeah. And it's like, are you kidding me? And actually, this same guy, he asked me what games I played. And I said, I don't know, dude. I do sissy things like go out and chainsaw and provide fire for my home and things like that. I don't have a lot of time for video games. Like, and you fuckers got to give up being little boys and move into being men. If you want women, if you want what I have with my wife, you don't get to act like a fucking 13-year-old and have it. You need to make that thing that we were talking about earlier, and then that good woman will come and she will fulfill your home, your life, your fucking soul. Everything about you will fucking just bang. But you need to quit being a little baby, quit chasing the pussy first, go out and build it. Because you go chasing the pussy, that's what you get. You don't get this. You get that.
Yeah. And so interesting, from the archetypal perspective on the hero's journey, the way I have found it, the warrior comes before the nurturer. Right? So if you want to make that transition, it's exactly what you say. You got to put the time in, build the infrastructure.
Yep. And then that amazing woman that's going to actually make your life better, and not just make it better because you're getting your pee-pee touched. Your world will grow And that only happens with that good woman. And that good woman only comes when you set up the good environment for her to come in and feel safe.
Nice. Yeah, truly fertile ground, because that's the ultimate purpose to me of the masculine feminine union,
Yes.
if you could call it that, because they're never separate. But yeah, that's, you can birth a whole lot, not just children, right? Project's purpose is the big one that I want to talk about. And I also wanted to point out how, you've recently had a accident with your finger, and you got the guts of the finger. And imagine if you were on your own, if you didn't have Christy having your back, that could mean everybody goes down because you can't use your right hand, right? All the
Yeah.
things that with the basic functions of life for the farm and the animals, right?
You betcha. Yeah, she keeps me going and I keep everything else going. That's 100% how that works.
Yeah. 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 It's a perfect circle. Exactly. And so this could be one last topic that we discuss today is what that is leading to is the purpose of a man compared to the purpose of a woman. And I am a purpose, that's my subject. I was going to say junkie. It's not really like that, but I'm very sensitive to purpose. I can see that in people, and I've seen it expressed really differently in men and women. And we live in a very unnatural society where a lot of women have become much more masculine and the other way around. But how do you see the function of purpose in that masculine nurturer, where there's a very strong desire to care for, to look after, to steward, and that dynamic of purpose?
So in that, and it's really honestly very, very interesting. You see it a lot with the parents. As the man, my job is to not care about anybody's feelings. Now, that doesn't mean I don't care about their feelings. I do. But my job is to not. And my job is to see the best thing for the home and for each of the individuals in it. So what I need to do is set that in place. No matter how anybody feels about it, no matter how much kicking and screaming happen, I need to ignore that, which is super fucking hard, especially when you love your children or your wife or whoever it is that's fighting against you for whatever it is that you're having to set in place for the good of all. A lot of times they fucking kick against it. You have to be the man that says, we're still doing it. Now, if your system's proper, your wife's not bucking. And she's the one who's going to go behind and make everybody feel okay about it. She's going to change the feelings and be the ambassador that says, I know that it seems like your dad's a hard ass, and I know you didn't really like that, but you know what? You can't go out after midnight when you're 15 and hang out with boys because you're going to get pregnant. And I know you think your dad's dickhead, but that's the rules. And if you don't follow them, not only is his punishment going to be a thing, but if you don't consider his punishment, your life for the rest of your life is going to face consequences. And that's why he's doing this, is setting up a smaller consequence so you don't for the rest of your life pay a larger consequence. And he doesn't want to. Nobody's like, yeah, I get to spank the kids. Oh, look at them cry. Oh, look how they look at you betrayed. This is so much fun. Like that don't fucking happen. But what it is an understanding of, I have got to do this now. I have got to break this bone and set it in place straight, so that way for the rest of their life, they aren't having this fucked up wonky spot. And you have got to suck it up and suck up them feelings that you're having and do the right thing. And then the feminine's going to make them feel, oh, your dad had to do that. If it didn't, this was going to happen. Your dad loves you. And this was really hard on him. Right now, your dad is outside by himself, walking around, talking about in his own head what a piece of shit he is and how much he hates himself. But he had to fucking do that in order to make sure you didn't suffer worse consequences later.
Right on. Right on. That's beautiful. Yeah. And then so when there's a strong sense of purpose on the feminine side as well, that there's, they have a vision, there's something to create, because at the end of the day, if anybody doesn't know, and I'm sure everybody does, but we are both masculine and feminine. Not irrelevant, you're a man, not irrelevant, Christy's a woman, but there's not a void of purpose in women.
No,
And
in fact, look at any political movement, any religious movement, the pinhead's the guy, everybody important underneath is a woman. Walk into any fucking political office during it's election season right now. Walk in there, most of the workers are going to be women. You give them that direction and they get behind it and they feel it. They are going to be the heart of that campaign. They are going to be the heart of that religion. They are going to be the heart of your home.
And yet purpose is something that will come. It's not like, oh, there's a direction to put my purpose. It's not like that. It comes from the inside, right? It's literally between you and God. God saying, do this. It's in you to do it. You do it. So how do you think those two, especially in the context of the nurturer, where there's mutual care going on in very different ways, how do you think the purpose is going to show up differently?
You're sharing a purpose. You're just approaching it in very different means. We both wanted that child to start acting right and become a good adult and become a good person. I had to do one side of it and she had to do the other. And if without either side, if I just lay down the law, now that's an angry child who's just rebelling, who doesn't take that as love, who's just angry, who's just, shitting on you. They will just go hard against what you're doing without the feminine trying to do so. You have to have the same purpose. This is where things go wonky when you've got that feminine and masculine polarized against each other. When you two aren't trying to build an empire together, you won't build an empire together.
There you go. Boom. That's the boom. Right there. I love it. I love it. Beautiful short answer. So I wanted to make sure and let people know that coming this Wednesday, May 15th, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I'm holding a training on getting off the nurturer's pendulum swing, where you go from, whether you're a man or a woman, you go from helping everyone full on and a nurturer's high, really like thinking it's great. And then boom, you're down for the count. You have to do nothing but take care of yourself and nurture and heal. And then you go into amnesia because you've got a nurturing spirit. And it won't be put down. You can't just stop helping. That's what people don't realize. That the babies out there will say, oh, well, just say no. And that's not the answer. It doesn't work. It's not like that. It's actually highly nuanced as an archetype. So I'm going to be doing a training that is zero cost to anybody who signs up with their email. And this is a link right here in the chat that I'm going to share that you can sign up for free right now. And there's 2 more interviews coming up on Monday. If you're familiar with Matt Presti, he's going to be coming on. He just got a promotion as a firefighter and it made me think about him. Yeah. And he's extremely nurturing to his community as well. I see a lot of love on a daily basis.
Extreme caretakers. These men put their lives in extreme danger. Like you look, I live in Northern California and you look, these guys, they die. Men die every year. And even the ones that don't, they'll spend hours fighting a fire and then they'll just basically take off a couple pieces of outer clothes and just lay on the ground just half dead. And they're in hundreds of degree heat. And these men are given everything to keep you safe, to keep me safe. That is the most extreme caretaking, nurturing thing I can imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't send women all swooning all over the place for nothing when you get that kind of energy that they're at all costs, they're going to protect the people, the property, or the people, the pets, and the property in that order.
The outfit, boys. They say it's the uniform. It's not the fucking uniform. It's the extreme caretaking. They know that man is going to put his life down to see mine taken care of. He's going to do everything.
But it requires a woman behind him that's willing to have her husband gone for 3 months while he's on a fire, and she's willing to run the household.
You got it.
And willing to have his back and make sure the life he comes back to
is not wrecked.
Yeah.
She don't find another dude in his bed and his kids fucking out somewhere looking grubby and everything else. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it, Christy. Absolutely. 100%. So, then this is a good opportunity to jump into the training. It's going to be live. It's going to be on Zoom interactive. We'll have some questions. People can find out how to get off of this pendulum swing of just going back and forth. I know it well. The people in my world know it well, and I've had a lot of breakthroughs in this arena, and I'm very happy to share. So that's coming up after May 15th. It's not too late. Maybe you're hearing this interview after Wednesday, then it will just instantly become the recording of that, so you can still get access. There's also going to be a course coming up in July, I believe starting July 10th, and it's going to be about the nurturer's cure. So going the whole gambit to look at all of the fine ins and outs of this archetype, where the shadows are, where you're in denial as a nurturer, where you can clean up, improve your relationships, for sure improve your abundance, because typical nurturers tend not to be valued for the work that they do, like you said, and you underappreciate, especially the masculine side, and then it just goes really flat. So yeah, a lot of different shadows of this archetype. People are always shocked when they see it. I personally am a nurturer, but I never saw that about myself until I was, I don't know, 45 or something. It's only, I literally was in such deep denial about it. I thought it wasn't me. I was going no to that nurturer. And my mom was the same. My sister swore at her funeral when I said, oh yeah, I asked my mom to do an archetype quiz before she passed away, which was amazing. Comes up the nurturer. I'm like, really? It's like, really? Because and my sister swore, she was mad. She was like, no way, that's not true. But my mom had a lot of shadow of that nurturer, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and intensity. So I'm on a mission to help people get good with their boundaries. The course is called Crushing with Boundaries. So on the 15th, I'll be sharing a lot more about that course as well, so people can get clean.
Boundaries is a big deal. You've got to know what the line in the sand is, and then from there you can interact with people.
Exactly. And what's happening in our future, it's a lot of predictions. It's not getting better. A lot of more people going down, whether that's financially in their work or with their health or all kinds of arenas. And so for those with the nurture archetype, the call is getting more intense. There's more people to look after. There's more demand on the skills that you have if you're that nurturer. So being able to manage that in a really graceful, beautiful way is super important. And you're nurturing your cats there, I can tell.
Yes.
There you go. There. I wish I could take some of those off your hands, but I took care of myself as a nurturer by rehoming my ocean. So he's in a really good place in the country, loving his new roommates that are guys. It's all a guy thing now. So yeah, super good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben. It's been a complete pleasure. I was genuinely excited about this conversation this morning, and it's definitely panned out in that way that I expected. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. We love you, Beth. Always a good time.
Love you too. Yeah. Anything else? Any closing words you want to share with people? What you're up to? What you'd like them to do? We talked about the weaving spiders on every Saturday, so I'll see you guys there if you show up.
Yep, been got weaving spiders webs on Saturday evenings, and actually Karen B and I are quietly trying to develop actual mystery school, and we're putting out a little bit of feelers, kind of drum up some interest. So it's a good thing to kind of talk about a little bit, and but it's going to be. All the other events are you sit back in a chair and presenters come up and they give a presentation, which it is in person, and you get to hang out with people and have those personal interactions. And that's important. But we're still, it's basically like watching a podcast in person. And that's not a mystery school by any means. And I don't care what Santos says or any of those other guys that are starting it, and then it's just podcasts that you pay a bunch of money to watch. That's nonsense. So we're working on an actual mystery school where we're thinking about maybe one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. It would be like a 4-day event. And as an example on my side, obviously we would take a day, we would set up alchemy experiments and actually go through them hands-on, because it's a school. And you will actually learn how to do different things and have things to take home and skills, start building your skill sets, not just, I'm sorry, but watching videos isn't research unless you actually put hands onto something. Like, it's fine to watch the video. I can watch a video about rebuilding an engine until I go rebuild the engine. I didn't really do anything. I just watched a fucking video. And so we're working up the interest to possibly do that next year. Like I said, maybe one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. Over there, they're talking about maybe like doing more of the sky clock. So they're doing telescopes and Cami Nodell with polarized filters, things like that. And on over here, we do this like the microverse. So it's more microscope work. I'm hoping to maybe get Matt Powers, who already does a microscope course and things like that. And we can start looking at the biomes of our plants. And what that's going to do is help you also with your permaculture. It's all going to fit in with your life. We can start living the fucking things we're talking about. So we're working up to that. We would like to kind of get some, drum up interest. So, that.
Amazing. What a great bit of news that is. Fantastic. I love your practical nature, and that's exactly where it can head. This isn't theoretical, guys. If we don't create something, we're not actually fulfilling purpose. I don't care how much it changes inside your experience. If nothing changes outside, then it's not the real deal. You just didn't go all the way. That's all. So yeah, that's amazing, Ben. By the way, thank you, whoever gave me a very generous tip on Rockfin. Much appreciated. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I would just like to let you know that I am live also to Vigilante TV, and nobody knows me over there. And I think not very many people subscribe either. So I'm sharing a link to that to get that channel going. I can actually live stream directly to it. That's Jeff Bearwork and the Dollar Vigilante.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So he's got some people on that channel. There's all the good ones. I can't remember anybody's name all of a sudden, but that's there are all a bunch are there. So I'm happy to be there as well. And then after this becomes, after the live is finished, this also will be turned into a podcast. So in 24 hours, you can go on my Spotify or iTunes if anybody prefers those. I always forget to mention those platforms. So just want to make sure that you do know. And then the very last time, I wanted to share the link to the training that I'm doing on Wednesday that Ben is getting behind me and supporting like the masculine does. And I appreciate that very much. So I'm just going to grab this link one more time for you. And there it is. Good. Being the link lady over here. All right, my dears. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you to you. Thank you to Christy for all her very valuable contributions as well.
You betcha. We love you, Beth.
Okay, love you too.
Have fun with your son.
I certainly will. Bye.